Hello, I'm Dr. Connor Bell, and I teach bassoon here at Auburn University. I'm recording this video to help you prepare the high school audition excerpts for Alabama's All-State competition. Let's begin with your Lyrical Etude, which is on page 57 of the Weissenborn that has the purple cover. In this one, let's begin with just checking some vocabulary terms, because these are going to give you a good start at playing this one musically and reflecting what the composer intended. First of all, andante is literally Italian for walking, and it means kind of a medium tempo, like the one that you probably take when you're walking somewhere with your footsteps and you're not in that big of a hurry. Underneath that, the opening gesture is marked forte sonoro. Sonoro is similar to our word sonorous, which means rich and full. Like someone with a wonderful speaking voice might be described as having a sonorous voice. That's contrasted 2 bars later with piano dolce. So soft and dolce is sweet in Italian. So those two ideas should contrast each other throughout this. We have the loud sonorous sections with these big leaps, and then the sudden piano sweet sections that then lead back into the loud stuff. When you're working on this one, and you're instructed not to take repeats, so it's fairly short, your primary goal throughout everything you play is having a rich, full, gorgeous bassoon sound. So making sure that you have a reed that's vibrating really well, and then you're generally just being as open and resonant as you can inside your mouth and your throat, and then just supporting the sound from your abdominal muscles. In this opening section, so we have a leap from B flat up to E flat, and then all the way down to low E flat, and then back up to G, and then all the way down to low E flat, and then back up to B flat, and all the way down to E flat, and all the way up to E flat. Basically what we're doing is playing your E flat major arpeggio, but the low E flats add to that sonorous quality that we're trying to get here. So I want to do a couple of things here. When I'm going up the arpeggio, I'm starting forte, but I'm also crescendoing on each one of those upper notes as I do it. I'm thinking of those upper notes as the main notes. They're the melody. The low E flat, you could think of this almost as if there was someone else playing with you on another bassoon, and you played the rising arpeggio, and they just chilled back and played low E flats to give you a bass line. So I want those to come across almost like 2 different players when I'm doing this, bringing out the high notes and then just a big full low E flat. And then after we've arrived at that high E flat, maybe with a little spin of vibrato, a little vibration from your abs, we go to piano dolce. I take just a little bit of time, da dee da dee da dum, before I start working my way down this scale passage to get us back to where we started. Pay close attention to the accidentals. And this is actually a really good excerpt for thinking about how you can derive musicality from accidentals. So music should always be doing something. We don't want to just chill out and not get louder or softer. We don't want to play stagnantly. We always want to have direction. Music is sound in motion. Accidentals are part of how we get that motion. Generally speaking, flats and naturals that lower a note resolve downward. They want to have a downward resolution. And sharps and accidentals that raise a note have a tendency to resolve upward. And so when we look at this, we go F, E natural. That E natural wants to resolve back up to the F. The E flat that comes right after it wants to resolve down to the D. The C sharp goes up, the C natural goes down, so on and so forth. And so basically what we do with having all those accidentals is it just gives us a little more motion as we're working our way down. And then once we get that crescendo, I think of like from the A flat in measure 1, 2, 3, 4 through to the E flat resolution in the next measure as being one group of notes that all just go da 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 dum and lead us forward. Always have motion in what you're doing. Also, take careful note of how different parts of the instrument are resonant to different amounts. So, especially depending on your reed, your low notes might be much louder with the same general airstream as the notes above them. Like if you look at the repeat sign, which remember you're not taking, you have B flat, F, B flat. That low B flat is probably going to be the loudest note on your instrument if you're not careful. And I think that generally what happens on beat 1 is the most important beat of a measure. And so in that measure, B flat, that first beat 1 is the arrival point. That's where the cadence really is. The other stuff is just bonus notes. I want to reflect that real note, bonus note quality by having the first B flat be the strongest and then the F and low B flat to come away slightly. If I'm not careful, it's going to do the complete opposite. So with my air, I'm thinking big B flat, little f, tiny B flat, which works out to being a slight diminuendo on those 3 notes. Then we have a subito piano dolce, and we work our way through the second phrase in much the same way as we did in the first half, just emphasizing some different harmonies. If we look in the third bar from the end, we have a fermata on a high B flat. I would take some time here in that whole measure leading up to it, really. So we go bum, beam, bum, 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 B flat, hold it, vibrate on it, maybe have a little bit of a taper, make your audience sit up on the edge of their seat. What's going to happen next? And then you answer in your best piano dolce sound, ba dee da 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 dum ba da do bum be oh. And then we're at the end. And again, just like with the B flat, F, B flat at the end of the first half of this, I want the same relationship in the last measure. So big E flat, a little less on the B flat, a little less on the low E flat. And then I'll have this kind of graceful, controlled quality that we want to have in here. So while you're working on this one, big, full, resonant sound. When you go to piano, make sure your pitch doesn't go crazy high. You have to be even more open, trying to be flat here in your embouchure and inside your mouth. Ooh, like you're saying, ooh, but then keeping up to pitch with your abs. So keeping this engaged will keep a good quality of sound there. Practice it with a metronome at first. Make sure you're being honest with yourself about the rhythm and how long those rests are, and we're not taking too much time on our rests. And then you can take away the metronome once you're comfortable with the rhythms and the pulse and have just a little bit of play with the time. Our timing, our rhythm in here can be tied somewhat to our dynamic and expressive choices. So if you're going to a big climactic moment like that high B flat with a fermata, you can slow down subtly into it and then speed up a little bit coming out of it to make up for lost time. And that same concept can be applied with some care not to overdo things throughout the excerpt. Let's now turn to your technical excerpt. In this one, allegretto grazioso, your main goal should be right there in the tempo marking. Grazioso means gracefully. So this isn't a big aggressive etude like the one that comes right before it, the allegro furioso. Da, 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 da. We're not doing that here. We are channeling some of that beautiful grace that we were getting in the lyrical etude and dragging it over into something that has a little more motion to it. Dia, 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 ba. Dia, dia, dia. It should feel light and effortless all the time. So while you're starting this one, choose a tempo at which you can play it light and effortlessly, because we want to be cultivating that approach to this etude from the very beginning. Then slowly start working up your tempo. The indicated 112 is about right. I might go slightly faster, partially just to help my breathing, because you have to go in the middle of this quite a long while without a breath. And if you're too slow, that just makes life harder for yourself. But never play this faster than you can do it effortlessly and gracefully. That should be your primary goal at all times. We start piano and we have a nice 8-bar phrase. And then we go to forte and have a very similar phrase, but at a louder dynamic level. These should rhyme with each other. They just are at different dynamics and they end a little bit differently. Look with me at the first measure of the third line. In this measure, you have a dotted quarter note and then 4 32nd notes, followed by 2/8. This can be kind of tricky. Keep it really slow. The 32nd notes are really kind of an ornamental gesture, spinning around a D. You start a little above a D, you go to a D, you go a little below the D, and then you come back to the D. It's just to make it a little more interesting than if they went D dotted quarter note, D 8th note, and then finish the bar. Make sure you're not playing them as 16th notes. The 32nd notes are really quick. And it helps if you practice it slowly, of course. But then once you're going for tempo, aim for the E natural that's on the downbeat. So you have your dotted quarter note, and then ba-da-da-dum, da-da-da-da-dum. And that dum should line up with your metronome, and your beat 3 will work. Then make sure you don't rush on beat 3. Just because you got through the 32nd notes doesn't mean your 8th notes should be quicker than they were in the bar beforehand. Then the next measure, we have a very difficult thing. One of the hardest things you'll ever do on a bassoon, an octave down slur from G to G. There's a decent chance that if you do this too well with the accent on the upper G and then a little bit of a diminuendo before the lower G, the low G just won't come out. So you have to do a few things to set yourself up for success. First of all, when we're going from middle G, which should have your pinky down on the resonance key, that top pinky key, and your thumb should be on the whisper key already, and it's half-hold. Any note on the bassoon that is half-hold should also have the whisper key down. The two things, opening a half-hole and opening the whisper key, do the same thing for us, and so we don't want to do that same thing twice. So if you have a half-hole note, put your thumb down on the whisper key, and it'll help you play the note more in tune and with a better sound. So we go from middle G down to low G. From a finger perspective, you have to release the resonance key and you have to slam that half hole shut. If your half hole stays open, the low G is not going to happen. So that has to pop shut, and you have to back it up with a voicing like you're a donkey and go, ee-aw. Say, ee-aw. That aw is going to help encourage the low G to come out. You also have to have a reed that's vibrating really well. It's not too old, it's not too closed, hasn't been smashed on your chair or music stand. And figure out how softly you can get, because we want to go G, G, and have the lower G be softer. But there's always a point where if you do that too much, the low G just won't come out. So figure out how far you can take it. then that quarter rest is the biggest breath you've ever taken in your life, because it's got to last for a long time. Take a big breath there. This next section is marked piano. Keep it piano. Your air will last longer if it stays piano. This is a great area to practice your half hole. So you go F to G, and the half hole has to be perfect. Slur down to the D, the half hole has to close. Open back up to the G, the half hole opens. This whole thing could have been written just to teach you to have really good, refined half hole technique. Another note on half holing, it's kind of a misnomer. We're not actually opening the whole hole. If you open like actually half of that hole, your G is probably going to be sharp and kind of wild. It's just opening it a little bit. You're venting that first finger a little bit to help it come out. So watch yourself in a mirror and try to see if this first finger can just move as subtly and as gently as possible to open that half hole. And play this section obnoxiously slowly. Da dee ya, da da dee. Crazy slow, but perfectly for as long as you can before you start trying to speed it up. As we work through, if you find line 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and then line 5, measure 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. This is where we start coming out of that piano shell. We start the measure on an F natural and do like what we've been doing for a while now. Da-dee-da-dum, F sharp. Ooh, that's interesting, that's different. And there's an accent on it. So accent that F sharp. And then we go right back to F natural. So it's like we're going between two keys. Which one are we gonna be in? We don't know. Keep your audience on their toes. And then we start adding flats to our sharps, and the arpeggios should sound more dissonant, and we crescendo here. When I recorded this, I took a really big breath before this section started, like after those octave Gs, big old breath. And then I sneak one in line 6, measure 1, 2, 3, 4. After that first G, when we have that taper, I take the quickest, littlest breath of my life, just enough to get me through these last 2 measures so that I can do the retard and have a good sound still. And that allows me to da-dee-da-da-da-dum, bum, 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 have a really drawn out dramatic retard. You've got a fermata over the bar line, so you have license to take some time there. So let the D sharp float away into the air. Remember that sharps want to resolve up, and looky there, it resolves up to an E. And then we basically just go through what we did in the first half. Start piano, next phrase, very similar, but we're forte. And then at the very end, we have that same 30-second note gesture, aim for beat 3. And then a slur from middle C down to low C. And so your thumb has to go from the whisper key down to the low C key. And just like with the Gs, your voicing has to go E-ho, as open as you can get on that low C to hopefully have it not be crazy loud, have it come out, and have a lovely resonant sound. Good luck working on these. If you have any questions, you're more than welcome to email me, and you can also get in touch if you'd like to have a lesson, either in person or over Zoom or Skype. My email address is easy. It's bassoon@auburn.edu. Good luck.